There we go.
I guess I could sit up there. That's fine. And the child. Yeah, it's like. That's right. Janet Brown, please continue to table this. Hi, Viola. How are you guys? Okay. Yeah. You're welcome. All right, you guys, Dr. Evans is about to get started. We're holding off. Looks like there was a rack and a couple of people contacted. They were still on the way. But I believe that everybody is here, so he'll be in momentarily for you guys. If you want, we have some healthy snacks up here. We're doing a little bit of like a ditch and switch thing, just to show some healthier alternatives for candies, snacks that you can have in your everyday life. So you're more than welcome to help yourself. If anybody wants any waters, just let me know. I'll grab a couple of bottles and put them up here for you guys, okay? You're welcome. Got some more bottles here for you guys, and if anybody did get a notepad or a pen and wants one, please help yourself to the ones we have up here and let me know. Okay, guys.
Good evening, everybody. Hi, great to have you guys here. How fun it is. A big family. I love it. For all of you that do, nice to have you guys here. Tonight we get to continue our seminar series. So we've done a really cool workshop by once a month, every month this whole year. We call it our Be Hard to Kill seminar series because ultimately we just want to pass knowledge and information back to you guys so that we can all make better choices, better lifestyle choices, okay? So some of the stuff we're going to talk about tonight are like, hey, if we need to really fix a disease process, we have some like really hard truths to cover. And some of it is we really need to be better, more conscious consumers, especially as we are getting into the holiday season, which we lovingly refer to this time of year as the flu or cold season. Shocking statistic, guys. The cold and the flu, it's around all the time. Okay? All the time. It doesn't magically show up in the fall. Okay? So it's just our systems are typically less efficient and less resilient at responding to the environment. Why do you think that is? What happens around the holidays? How do we eat? Sugar. We like crap, right? A lot of sugar. Okay? So sugar, we know that suppresses what? Your immune system dramatically. Very, very, very quickly at a very large percentage. Also, the sun has a really big role in reference to our sleep cycles and sleep patterns. Guess what else we don't get as much of in this season? Sunlight. And guess what happens if we don't sleep a consecutive 7 to 8 hours consistently? What happens to our natural killer cells? They decrease by 30%. And those are the cells that we need to kill cancer. Okay? Yep. So we sleep less, or we sleep distorted, right? We don't get as much sunlight. So in reference to vitamin D synthesis and production. And then we also eat more junk. So that's kind of what we're talking about tonight. Cool. Ultimately, I want to help teach you guys a little bit more about the gut-brain connection. It is currently accepted that roughly 95% of disease burden in America is lifestyle induced. Okay, epigenetic factors, meaning the stuff that we do and get into every single day, the choices that we make for ourselves. Roughly 5% of disease burden in this country is estimated to be genetically predisposed, or there is a physical anomaly in the genome that is causing the expression of the disease process. Cool? So that's kind of crappy, but it's also kind of cool because that's actually very hopeful information because guess what we have control over? 95% of disease expression, right? And due to our lifestyle choices. So when we talk about health, guys, our office heavily focuses on something called salutogenesis, or the study of the origins of health, rather than the focus of disease and disease processes, okay? Does anybody ever play around with the ICD codex? You know, ICD diagnoses, this is what we use to code and tell insurance companies what problems people have. You want to guess how many ICD codes there are? Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of different codes we can use to describe different diseases. So if we get lost in the weeds and we focus on each individual disease process, are we ever going to find our way to health? Not typically, no. So we really want to focus on health and health practices. And where, if you guys have been a patient in this office for more than probably a month, you should know the answer to this question. What two systems in your body pretty much control and coordinate everything else that happens inside you? Nervous system, nice job, Ken, thank you. And your digestive system. Nice, because everything in your body runs on power and chemistry. Where does all your chemistry come from? How do we put fertilizer into this soil and garden? Food. Great. Where does all the power supply come from? Where the information come from to coordinate action? The nervous system, right? And the nervous system is heavily dependent upon the health of what to do its job. The health of your spine, which is why we're here tonight. Cool. So guys, if you guys are readers like me, you like to consume information, really cool ones here. Mind-gut connection, autoimmune epidemic, and brain. You guys want to read those? Really good resources for you. One of my favorite ones, but it's like super heady clinical, it's a little bit harder for people to understand, is what's called polyvagal theory. This is the literal connection between your gut and your brain. We're going to talk about that a little bit more tonight. But your vagus nerve is a super important neurologic structure. It actually has its own classification of the nervous system called the enteric nervous system. And it literally is so important, it's its own name because it literally does every job of the body. It's pretty cool. So guys, we're going to talk about general disease processes, why it's happening in reference to what's going on with gut health, and then specific ditches and switches we can get into through the holiday season. Again, when we talk about this, is it healthy? No. Is it a better alternative to the mainstream crap we all put in our bodies? Yes. Good. And so part of the conversation is how can we reduce burden, right? Show of hands, who here agrees with me that your body is a self-adapting and self-healing organism? Love it. Everybody's hands. If the body is a self-adapting and self-healing organism, then what moves us away from our body's natural state to do that? Variable lifestyle stressors. Okay, stressors can be physical in nature, like repetitive exercise, postures, car accidents, slips and falls, growing up with an older sibling that hits you in the back of the knees with a baseball bat. Physical stressors. Okay. What about chemical stressors? Food, water, toxins, environments, makeups, cleaners, toxins, laundry detergents, parabens, sulfates, BP, BPA, all the stuff that's in our crops, our soil, our water, right? Everybody good on that? Yeah. We'll cover a little bit more in depth, but we all know that there's a systemic poisoning of life, humanity, life, right? Because we are more profitable as sick individuals than we are as healthy individuals. Yes. Chemtrails, off base there. Okay. And then we have all of our mental and emotional stressors. And the cool part about your body, it does not differentiate between what kind of stress are you interacting with. So when we come in contact with various stressors, the body is going to go into a stress response. They call it fight or flight mechanism. When we are in a chronic state of stress, does our body do a better job or a worse job of healing tissues and regulating inflammation? Good. So if we're all chronically stressed all the time, makes sense why we're having a hard time repairing our bodies and repairing tissue in the way that we were innately designed to. Does this make sense, guys? Beautiful. So unfortunately, when we have systemic disease, specifically correlative to gut health and gut health practices, these are the primary problems that we typically deal with in society and in life. One being autoimmune disorders or autoimmune profiles. Everybody know what autoimmune means? The body attacking itself. If the body is an intelligent mechanism and a self-adapting and self-healing structure, why would the body ever attack itself? Stressors, right? It shouldn't, agree, but it does, right? Autoimmune disorders are going up or going down in prevalence. Significant, yes, and there's a billion, right? So at this time, actually more than this, 50 million Americans do suffer from autoimmune disorder. It's roughly $100 billion per year in reference to economic burden, and researchers are still believe that the increase in autoimmune incidence around the world is due to a combination of genetic predispositions and environmental factors. Yeah. And there's been an over 300% increase in the diagnosis of if you have one autoimmune condition, the probability is you will have one or more. Okay. So really good read, autoimmune epidemic. Unfortunately, autoimmune disorders do typically seem to either be diagnosed more readily or typically be more prevalent in female versus males. right? Autoimmune disorders can show up in really any tissue of the body. And it's underlying, it's pretty much the same disease process. It's just whatever tissue it's attacking, that's the diagnosis you receive. So if it attacks your thyroid, you're going to get diagnosed with Hashimoto's. If it attacks your nervous system, you're going to get diagnosed with MS, right? So you're going to get various diagnoses depending upon which organ or which tissue it shows up in. But again, the root of the issue is all still coming from the same place, which is your gut and body's ability to interact with the environment effectively, regulate and heal itself in the world that we live. Guess what else is highly correlated to gut health? Who came to our advanced workshop on mental health? Yeah, okay. We talk about serotonin. Everybody know what serotonin is? What is serotonin? It is a hormone neurotransmitter. Yes. And it makes us feel what, Gene? Happy and well-regulated. Where is 90% of serotonin created in the body? Say it louder. The gut. Chocolate specifically, 72% cacao greater has some pretty cool health benefits. Yes, precursor. I don't have data on this. But I saw something the other day that people that boil banana peels make like banana peel tea. Banana peels, I haven't researched this, so hold me to this, okay? Banana peels release the precursor to tryptophan, so people make it at night and it helps you to like fall asleep faster. Haven't researched it yet. You're curious to look at. I don't know that yet. Just saw it randomly the other day. But serotonin, 90% is made in the stomach and small intestines by the microbiome. Okay, we're going to talk a lot about the microbiome tonight. It's important that you understand this process of your health and your well-being. So if we really want to have a huge impact on mental health, we need to be working on stress management, yeah, but also gut health. Okay. And unfortunately, this is impacting adults. And actually, do you think more adults are diagnosed with anxiety disorders or more children? Pediatrics, by a large margin. Okay. Same thing with depression, specifically in adolescents or the 13 to 18-year-old demographic. 1 in 3 adolescents, 1 in 9. Skills, you're accurate. Okay.
I asked the question. We talk about like, teenagers, young adults. Like, I don't remember anybody or any time or anyone saying, "Oh, I'm depressed," when I was. Understand, but again, right. And then also when we were younger, it's just like your mom was smacking you back in the head, you're being hyper. Guess what? You're still. So like I.
So maybe there's a little bit of nurturing to this process, right? There's a lot of nature involved as well. So would you agree that the environment today, as well as the chemical burden of society, is increased from what it was 30 to 50 years ago?
Oh, I think that we're absolutely horrible and let our children live inside. So, yeah.
But in reference to, what's in the air, what's in the water, what's being put into their bodies at a much higher rate and quantity than what was put in my body or your body.
We had to drive 2 hours to McDonald's, so.
Yes. Those things are all adding up and influencing what's called the epigenetic expression of the body. Okay. Anybody come to our workshop on epigenetics, where we talk about methylation and histone modification? I know, gee, that's one of the ones. Let's just sleep over. But methylation, histone modification. If you guys do not understand these terms, they are huge players in this epigenetic disease burden understanding. Okay, if we methylate a gene, we are inhibiting it. We are turning it off. So, ladies, you guys have a BRCA1 and a BRCA2. Those are genes that either genetically predispose you to get breast cancer or to inhibit breast cancer. BRCA2 is a breast cancer inhibition gene. So if we get a lot of plastics, a lot of crap from our makeups, cleaners, and toxins like parabens and sulfates, they mess with methylation processes. And if we methylate BRCA2, you are basically turning that tumor suppression gene off.
Is that the Brackin?
Right.
Is that why people take methylene drops?
That's why they, not methylene blue,
Not the blue, the other one.
but methylated B vitamins. Yes, absolutely, like methylcobalamin or methylpentaphenate or methyltetrafolate. So if you guys are taking B vitamins and it doesn't start with the term METHYL, your body is not getting a whole lot from it. It's a more difficult formulation to absorb and utilize. Okay. So this is also super important in your understanding of the various products that we use, right? But unfortunately, statistically, when that doesn't include,
I tried not to bump your thing.
it's okay. This doesn't include childhood obesity. Okay, when we include that, the statistic goes up over 50%. So more than 50% of our children are chronically ill in this country. It's crazy. So the impact of chronic illness across the board, because gut and brain play a primary role in this process. 107 million Americans, at least 1 in 6, have one of 20 chronic health conditions. 70% of deaths are from chronic health conditions, and 50% if they have one, they have another. An estimated economic burden of $2.3 billion annually. Citing good sources. Good. So guys, when we get lost in sauce in reference to disease burden, we need to make health more readily understandable and tangible, right? So I think I've done this for a couple of you guys before, but most of you guys drove one of these things to be here tonight, right? What does a car need to get from point A to point B?
Yes.
Good, yes. So it needs to have fuel. These have tires, so these have some parts as well, right? Steering wheel, oil. Okay. Oh, say the last one. A driver, because if a car has all of its parts and it's got a full tank of gas, but it doesn't have anything to input intelligent command to make the parts and the power organize and work together, it's not going to go from A to B. Does that make sense to you? Cool. The same thing is true of this cool system that's mapped off your human brain. It needs a motherboard, a keyboard, it needs a full battery. But if it's just sitting there doing its thing, this was before AI, it was a little freaky, we're not talking about tonight. It typically needed somebody inputting intelligent command to get the parts and the power to organize and generate a product, to deliver an end result, okay, to coordinate action. This system, what does it need?
Water.
Parts, power, information. Needs the same 3 things, okay? So AAMP 101 guys, give me some parts at the bottom. Legs, cool. Heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, brain, legs. What about power? What's the power supply at the bottom? ATP, nice, adenosine triphosphate, which we generate in the cell because of the food we eat in the mitochondria. Yes. So we're talking about micro and macro cellular mechanisms. But what is this? What's the information of the body?
Use knowledge.
I know, right? Any musicians in the room? Yeah, cool. Does everybody understand the concept of tuning a guitar? For the most part? Okay, so wires or nerves run on vibration. Okay? Have you ever stood next to a power plant before and heard the hum? Cool. Electricity, resonance, it vibrates. Yeah, it's a frequency. So guess what the information is in your body? The quality of the frequency of the vibration of your nerve tissue. And cool research shows us that the amount of tension equivalent to the weight of a dime can inhibit neural impulses by upwards of 60%. So what places a lot of tension on nerve tissue? The health and structure of your body. Yeah, A+ student. I played it. He knows all the answers. That's just so yeah, your spine. Okay, your spine has anchoring sites where the nervous system attaches inside the bony column, and the more distorted the spinal structure gets, the more abnormal tensions applied to nerve tissue, and then your brain starts to get really crappy communication. The brain's like, I'm supposed to make things work, but I don't know. I'm not getting the data that I need to do the job. Right? If we played a game of telephone here, everybody knows what telephone is? Yes. So if I whispered something good, and she sent it down the line, and by the time it got back to Mr. Sullivan, that information that message, would it be the same or would it be different? It'd be extremely distorted, correct? The same thing is true for spinal column. There are 28 vertebrae, 33 relays, and so if each of those is a little funky, put its own little spin on the information going from your toes to your brain, the brain's gonna be like, I kind of got what you're telling me, and I'll try to figure it out. Okay? So the quality of the information traveling over the nervous system is really, really important to how our body interacts with the world and the environment. but so is the power supply, what we're nourishing our system with, okay? Because we are all made up of parts, parts eventually do what, guys?
Break down.
Yeah, we have to do something, right? Cool. So parts do eventually break down over time. What would accelerate the breakdown of a part? Bad food or treatment, stressors, right? Physical, chemical, mental, emotional, right? So, for example, very stressors. So if we had this beautiful little plant, let's say it's a peach tree, because peaches are awesome. And let's say we put it in an environment where it wasn't getting the ideal amount of sunlight. It was potentially getting, drinking tap water. And it was, sprayed with glyphosate and Roundup, which is, class action lawsuit, you probably what? Specifically lymphoma, yes. Largest spine in the industry. Besides the Sackler family, Purdue Pharma, and the opioid epidemic. And then Monsanto filed bankruptcy and got bought and shelved under an incorporation, and so that's why you get the environment today. So, various stressors. What if we take the same principle and we apply it to this system? What if we give this system less light, like in fall, right? What if we give it less movement? And the Journal of Exercise Physiology indicates that children are moving roughly 33% less than they were 5 years ago. Okay. And what if we make them put a bunch of tap water in here? Tap water is filled with what? Fluoride, which is now been known to be, but is now documented as a known what? Neurotoxin, process of the brain barrier and breaks down nerve tissue. Okay. People have been talking about this for 20 years, but they were being chased with torches and pitchforks. And then what about if we have this dude cook on Teflon and reheat all their food in plastic containers in the microwave? Yeah, microplastics. Right. So can you guys see now, how this system would maybe talk to us a little bit faster over its life cycle than somebody 60, 70 years ago? Of like, hey, so many children are chronically ill now. Like, yeah, the burden is excessively high and it's happening sooner. Do you guys know that they've started to test fetal cord blood? Do you want to know what the average amounts of known toxins and carcinogens are in fetal cord? Meaning blood they're pulling from the umbilical cord while baby is still in utero. 221 is what was listed on the research set. 221 known carcinogens and chemicals in fetal cord blood. So we're cooking in a stew that doesn't allow for the appropriate maturation of neural tissue, and less than 50% of children at this time in our country are neurotypical, neurodivergent. Yes. So symptoms, guys, not good or bad, just a good expression of what's going on. And the rise of disease burden across all statistics in America is going up. So we gotta be more conscious consumers, especially in the seasons where as moms, dads, grandparents, we just want to love our little people and spoil them a little bit. And it's like, it's Halloween, get out there and go, fill a pillow sack worth of candy and then eat it in a week. And then try not to get sick, right? I'm the weird, crazy, mean dad that we don't do that. That's what we do. If we do partake in Halloween, then we do an exchange, okay? We exchange the pillowcase, donate that candy, and they can pick one of the few items to eat over an extended window of time. So that's a way that you could potentially choose to manage that in yourselves or your families. But I know it's not, you're not going to be the fun parent. You're not going to be fun grandparent. But would you rather build them in a lifestyle that's going to ensure success? I don't know about you, but legacy is really important to me. Propagation of lineage, like infertility rates, and like what's going on in the world, or do we want to, be the fun person? So, and it's a choice, right? So it's an exchange. So we got to make sure that we're being much more conscious consumers and providing the body what it needs to do its job. Because this is what we like to talk about, called the gut-brain quadrangle. This is adopted from Dr. Paul Hardy, who's a biomedical doctor out of the West Coast who specializes in the care and, dare I say, reversal of neurodevelopmental issues. So we have our own individual genetics, and do genetics play a role in our health? Yes, but it's not the end all be all. Okay, 5% versus the 95%. So we put somebody with a genome that, and has everybody heard of the MTHFR gene mutation, by the way? MTHFR is becoming increasingly common in new children. Their body is having a much harder time detoxifying because of these epigenetic methylation processes that we're talking about. So they need a lot more metabolic and supplemental support to help their bodies to detox from the burden that is being placed upon them in the neonatal period. So we have these various physical, chemical, mental, emotional stressors from the environment and our nutrition, the standard American diet, aka the SAD diet, SAD, standard American diet. Is that allowing us for the appropriate macronutrient and the vitamins and the minerals that we need in the right formulations to get into our body to help our body do well? Nope. So we have malnutrition, various stressors going through a genetic profile that might be having a harder time in this environment. And then we have 4 systems listed in this quadrangle: nervous system, GI, detox, immune system. And guess what? See how they're all 2-sided arrows? Do any of these systems work independently of the other? Nope, it's all one big super system, right? We are a holistic being and all of our processes interact with each other. I'm a little biased. I think it's cool if the nervous system is at the top. Kind of important, right? So if we have a nervous system that is stressed, not able to process and regulate and control and coordinate effectively, and we have a GI system that's burdened with heavy environmental toxins and not the right nutritional profile, our detoxification system is going to be overactive and our immune system is going to be underactive. Sometimes it's hyperactive, and that's what we get autoimmune profiles from, okay? And then based upon the interaction of these systems, the health of this individual and what's going on in their environment, cracks can show up. And then we get a diagnosis. So you have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and so we need to pump people with Synthroid in order to make the thyroid work. Does the thyroid work independently of the other glands of your body? No. Where does thyroid stimulating hormone come from? Because if you're deficient in producing T3 or T4, you're not generating enough thyroid stimulating hormone. Where does that hormone come from? Your pituitary gland, which is located where? So guess what we need to work on? Nervous system and gut health. Yep. Ready? All right. So this is happening to all of us in varying magnitudes, and it's showing up differently in each of our own profiles because we're all unique individuals experiencing life in our own way. So genetic predisposition and chronic environmental stress. 95, 5. That is contributing to something called microbiome depletion or alteration, could be termed. Show of hands, what is a microbiome? Okay.
Community of bacteria in your gut and all over you. Yeah.
All over you, in your blood, in your blood vessels, in your skin, in your lymphatic system, in your digestive system, literally everywhere. You are a walking bacterial colony. There's a video coming up. I'm going to skip it. It's a cool TED Talk. You want to check it out? It's based on a book called 1/10 Human. It is Halloween time, so play along. If he took me and threw me into a witch chipper, caught all of it, and looked at it under a microscope, 9/10 of what you would see would be bacterium in foreign bodies. 1/10 would be my human DNA. We are outnumbered in and on our own body in a 10-to-1 ratio from bacterium and viruses to human cells. So you think if these bacteria are that prevalent that they may play a role in your health and well-being? Yes, we live in a really cool symbiotic relationship with the environment around us. These bacterium, because we come in contact with bacterial exposures every day, and I would actually encourage you to get more of it. Any Office fans in here? Anybody watch The Office?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know where Dwight's like, hey, like I want all of it, and Jim just like sneezes in his face and he's like, thank you. But that's actually there's a reason why people that have a lot of exposure don't get sick though, because their immune system is constantly being forged under the maze. So microbiome, incredibly important to something called psychoneuroimmune modulation. Okay, Psycho means what? Our mental and emotional perceptions and beliefs, okay? The microbiome is foundational to your mental and emotional birth. The microbiome is foundational to your nervous system. And the microbiome is foundational to your immune system, okay? It is the precursor to your immune system. In fact, your microbiome actually makes its own antimicrobials, its own antibiotics, when it comes in contact with a species that is not part of this system. Pretty cool. So your microbiome, the bacteria that live on you, are fighting for you. It's kind of cool. So where do we get our microbiome from, guys? Where do we get our first bacterial exposure from? From your old mama, coming through the birth canal, okay? If we are not born vaginally, we do know that those individuals do typically have a like 50% increase in all chronic childhood diseases, asthmas, recurrent infections. Also, how do we typically treat children who have an infection in mainstream medicine? Are antibiotics bacterial strain specific? Are they broad spectrum? Yes, they do. Do antibiotics do anything for you if you have a viral? How many times do we take our kids to the doctor with an infection and we get antibiotics to treat a bacterial infection, but it's actually a viral infection?
My primary care for my kids, they do not give them antibiotics.
That's amazing. That's a huge rigor. That's what we should do. Yes. But actually, if you look at the American Academy of Pediatrics, giving antibiotics to any child is contraindicated and has a 90 to 97% causation, not correlation, causation to chronic otitis media, sinusitis, rhinitis, and bronchitis. Meaning, one introduction of antibiotics in the adolescent period gives you a 90% probability of having recurrent infections in the future. This is in the American Academy of Pediatrics. Look it up. So the microbiome responsible for psychoneuroimmune modulation, we get it, comes to the vaginal canal, being exposed to bacterium. Ideally, moms in the preconceptive phase are taking very good care of themselves and having a healthy bacterial flora of vaginal canal, so that way we can pass that to babies. And that bacteria, really cool. Have you guys ever heard of something called the golden hour? Mm-hmm. Yes. So the hour after baby's born, that bacteria will spread from mouth through the entire digestive system to anus. It'll proliferate in the first hour of life, lighting the entire digestive system. That's pretty stinking cool, right? And then moms also give babies really wonderful microbial contents through their breast milk, because ladies are built way more than dudes. You guys have glands in your areolas that the baby's saliva interacts with the glands in your areolas, and then your body makes the perfect microbial nutritional cocktail for that baby at that moment. At that time. Sir,
I think I've heard it that if a mother does it to a child that's not their own, they'll create another cocktail. For
Yep. Yeah, so they did a really cool study where its mom had identical twins. One had a common corona or rhinovirus, so a common cold. The other was asymptomatic. And so she was exclusively breastfeeding symptomatic baby on breast, and non-symptomatic baby on right breast, and expressed the milk in petri dishes. And they studied it, and this one was vastly different than this one. Super cool, right? Yeah. So ladies are super cool. So we solidify that microbiome by being breastfed, and that what's lines the tight and gap junctions of our stomach and small intestines, because your digestive system, what's its job? What's it do for you? Absorption and elimination. Good. In summary, right? Do we want everything that we put in here to go into our bloodstream? No. So how is our body selective at what it allows into the bloodstream and what it wants to keep out? Your microbiome and something called tight and gap junctions in the intestinal lining. They are like bouncers, okay? They're the ones that are like, you can come in, you stay out. We like you, we don't. We are going to absorb you, we don't absorb you. But if we break down the microbiome and the tight and gap junctions of our intestines, we're going to end up with something called leaky gut. Guess who has leaky gut, guys? All of us, in varying degrees. I resemble that all, right? Everybody. And so this influences our autoimmune profiles, our hypersensitivities, this is such a big one that drives me bananas. Allergens and skin irritations and sensitivities like eczemas. You do not have eczema because you have a steroid deficiency. Okay? You have eczema because your body is highly inflamed. Yes. And the only other excretory organ of the body besides the digestive system is your integumentary system. So if you can't get waste out of here, guess where it's coming out, guys? Skin. Very good. So then we end up with more pathologies. As that progresses, then we end up with severe neurologic inflammation, and that's going to be like MSs, your ALSs, your Alzheimer's, dementias, your ADDs, ADHDs, autism, OCDs, all the neuroencephalopathies, all things that are basically brain inflammation. Have you guys figured out that like everything you get diagnosed with ends in itis? What does itis mean? So guess what the root of the like 95% of your diseases are? The body produces inflammation in response to what? Stressors. Guess what we got to get better at doing? Managing stressors or improving the competence of our body to adapt to stressors more efficiently. Cool? Adaptogens are a great way, part of the process of doing it. So here's the actual descriptor of leaky gut syndrome. We have 4 dietary profiles, antibiotics, you already have one, part of the process. Variable underlying pathogens like parasites, and guess what? Who has parasites now, guys? Basically everybody in some varying degree. You probably did. Because you did such a good job in your health. Shameless plug, we're going to so and if you interact with animals at all, you have parasites most likely. There are 3 things that God gave us that are really cool that help us to get rid of all the developmental stages of parasites in the body. You know what they are? This is a good takeaway, okay? Sweet wormwood, green walnut husk, and clove. If you find a tincture or now you do not just want to do this willy-nilly because parasites' primary food source is what? Sugar, heavy metals, and toxins. So if we kill off all the parasites, guess where that stuff's going? Into your bloodstream. And guess what's going to happen to you? You're going to get very sick. I've seen this happen in parasitic detoxes that did not go according to plan. Because usually if we go through a parasitic detox, we also have to pair that with something called a binder. Okay? Like an activated charcoal of some kind to bind to pull it out. Now,
What did you say the second one was?
sweet wormwood, green walnut husk, and cloves. And if we consume those things, also pumpkin seeds, very helpful for parasites. Like if we eat pumpkin seeds at breakfast. Those are all good things to help with natural means to help for the body of parasitic infection. So I would highly encourage you guys to not just jump into that, but to definitely give that a bit more of a read. Cellcore has a really good parasitic protocol if you're interested in diving into that a little bit deeper. But again, you do have to pair it with a binder or you will get super duper ill. Okay? Depends upon what the parasitic load is. So we have drugs, alcohols, toxins, stressors, hypersympathetic response, basically we're super duper stressed. And ultimately, when we are super duper stressed, does your body want to give more blood to your stomach or more blood to your heart and your extremities? Heart and extremities, because when we are stressed out, we want to fight, flight, run away. So our body devotes resources to the mobilization of sugar, and it gives our blood to our extremities and to our heart and to our lungs so we can run away from problems. Okay? So in a hypersympathetic dominant state, meaning a chronic stress response, guess what chiropractic helps you do? Not be there. Okay? Our body's actually pulling resources away from the digestive system, making it less efficient and a more hostile environment. Okay? But if these tight junctions, these guys right here, the gatekeepers, bouncers, they break down, then we end up with leak crack, getting into the bloodstream, and then your very intelligent body will do the very best that it can, start to attack that or attack itself, and that is a autoimmune disease. Okay? So how do you think we can reverse the majority of autoimmune diseases? Step one.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. We're gonna take this video, even though it's really cool. There is a cool TED Talk called 110 Human, really cool book called 110 Human. Highly encourage you to check it out. Signs that you have leaky gut. Okay. This guy right here. Bloating, gas, cramps, food allergies, and sensitivities. There is a really important thing for you to understand that there is a huge difference between an allergen and something you are sensitive to. For example, me. I am not allergic to anything. So I've done testing. I am highly sensitive to dairy. If I consume dairy, my system is wrecked. I will be somewhat anxious or very depressed, and I will start to have like really interesting inflammatory responses in either my knee or lumbar spine, like L5S1. If I consume an excessive amount of dairy. Okay? There are certain dairies I can't get away with. Certain dairies, like it's not okay. We go out for ice cream for any reason. It's not. I'm not hampered for the next like 72 hours. Okay. Really cool study that they did for fried foods. Okay, we are all sensitive to fried foods. Nobody's eating fried food. They did a cool study. Do you guys know? So inflammatory markers in your bloodstream. How long do you think inflammatory markers are elevated in the bloodstream after you smoke a cigarette? 12 hours. 4. How long do you think inflammatory markers are elevated in the bloodstream after you consume fried food? 48. Whoa is right. So you're telling me that eating fried chicken is, I'm not a math guy, whatever times X more inflammatory than smoking a cigarette? Yes, that is what the data shows. Crazy. Yes, ma'am.
So are you talking about fried food with the seed oils?
Hydrogenated oils.
How about your steak?
Better. Still not right. Okay, because the process of frying is the process of denaturing protein.
Okay.
It's still carcinogen. Sir.
Would this include like potato chips too?
Oh yeah. Sorry guys.
Take on this.
Decent to go. Yeah. Smoke points are really important to understand when working with oils. And so some of our oils have much higher smoke points or denaturing points than like our hydrogen. So your beef tallows, your grass-fed butters, your coconut oils, your cold pressed organic olive oils. Those are the ones that we want to stick. Okay. But if that progresses and we don't just stop it at leaky gut, which is going to affect all sorts of interesting hormonal profiles as well, then we'll end up with neurologic inflammation, and then we'll start to have other fun issues. Top 7 signs that we got leaky gut, or top 7 foods that contribute to leaky gut. Gluten and most grains, and it's not gluten by itself is bad. Okay, it is what it is treated with in this country. All gluten is sprayed with what? Pesticides, and specifically folic acid. Folate is very important to you. Folonic acid is very important to you. Folic acid, not awesome. Body can't do a whole lot with it. Okay. Most of your B vitamins that you like, let's say folic acid. Folic is a different formulation than folate. Methyl tetrafolate is different than folate.
I keep thinking folic acid in pregnancy.
Yes, you are correct. But folic acid is not what we need. Simply methyl tetrafolate or the precursor to that, because they're doing a really cool thing now. I'm not sure if you guys have been catching on to this. It's all over the socials. They're starting to help individuals with neurotypical issues by giving them high dose folonic acid, which is a different formulation, but it has about 50% cure rate. They used to use this medication. It was called Leucovorin for cancer patients with actually pretty high success. And all it was folate, but in a different formulation. So there's kind of a cool shift in the neurodevelopmental world right now where the data is there. It's pretty neat. You guys want to check it.
So what about organic? Gluten? Things that are
Better.
organic.
It does reduce your burden, but a lot of us have gluten sensitivities now because of the genetic modification and hybridization of these various strains in order to make them more resistant to the world. So our body has a harder time breaking them down on something. I also read something really interesting that if you buy pre-milled grains, the nutrient quality of what you're getting is already stripped. So there's also a kind of a cool shift in movement towards everybody milling their own grain for their house and then using that flour to bake with because it still holds and maintains like 90% of the nutritional competence of what comes from grains. And it's, if you know, I don't know how far down the rabbit hole you want to go, but there's some really cool biblical aspects to that. And if you look at the Amish community and their incidences of chronic disease, autism, and fertility rates, the Amish are going to have all those guys. They are truly going to repopulate the earth because their fertility rates are fantastic and ours are terrible. Okay. And if you go to a fertility clinic, if a male has a 4% normal spermatogenesis, that is considered a normal, healthy sperm cell. Meaning 4% of the sperm in that sample are viable and have the normal morphology of what a sperm should be. 4%. Yet it takes 2 to tango, right? And we put so much of that infertility burden on who?
The woman.
Yet in every other animal type breeding process, who is the prize? The stud, right? People pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to breed with next stud, okay? Because the quality of the sperm influences the quality of the formation of the placenta. And ladies, and I know you know this one already, morning sickness is whose fault?
Man.
And the quality and morphology of the sperm. If you guys want to dive into that, it's worse. Yep, it's required. There's more methylation processes occurring where the mom is having to repair the lack of what it is that's coming through it from the sperm. And Marcia Schaefer is a really cool person to check out on this. She has an infertility clinic up in Madison, Wisconsin. She has a very, very, very high success rate working with individuals within a calendar year to helping them to conceive via natural means by fixing the health, fixing brain health, and getting the body to do what it's supposed to do.
So,
Yes.
subsequent, pregnancies would, like with my daughter, this is her third, and she just now had the morning sickness. So does that mean kids are getting one?
That's a good question. As we age, do we get more efficient at repairing cellular structure or less efficient? Less, right? That's why anybody over the age of 30, the probability and viability of the eggs that we have left, and the ability to repair genetic shifts goes down. Okay? No, it's fine. So glucose grains, sugars, artificial sweetness, conventional meat, because you are what you ate, and most of our conventional meats are given what? To get them really fat? Hormones. And then because we pump full of hormones and make them grow really fast and give them the appropriate nutrients, they get super duper fat and sick, right? And then we pump them full of what? So they don't die, right? So we can get them to market within 3 to 6 months. And then if you guys have ever watched any of these documentaries on meat processing, you will see them have to cut like large pockets of pus out of the meat. And then they're also using something called meat glue. Have you guys heard of this? Yes. Where they're basically taking all the nasty bits of meat and putting this chemical compound in it, rolling it up in cellophane, throwing it in the fridge, and then literally in like 24 hours, it looks like a beautiful fillet.
Are you talking about here again?
Nope. It's actually called meat glue. You can look it up. Yes. I have not touched on it. Refined vegetable oil, we talked about that because omega-3s versus 6s and 9s have a different impact on the body. Judge modified food, tap water, and what is the appropriate way recommended by our governing bodies to get rid of extra pharmaceutical medications and specifically opioids?
Oh, I know. Oh. I literally disconnected the dots.
And then you're drinking it. Pesticides, NSAIDs have about 3. They correlate NSAID usage, overutilization of NSAID usage has a correlation to about 300,000 deaths per year due to GI disease. Okay. Antibiotics, skin, hair, cleaning products. Foods that help leaky gut, bone broth, organic bone broth. Okay, because of the good branched chain amino acids. It's going back to older days where it's like, Grandma, I'm sick. Let me make you some organic chicken noodle soup.
Yeah.
Organic bone broth, rich in branched chain amino acids, which helps restore the health of the gut lining, which is why the majority of our chronic illnesses, if we go to a very polarizing diet for a short window of time, like a ketogenic diet, ketogenic dieting is showing to reverse or helping the body to rebuild myelin, or the sheath that surrounds the nervous system. So it's actually helping to reverse MS type lesions, right? Now I'm not saying ketogenic dieting forever is good. It's not. It's too polar. It will cause other problems. Okay, but there are cool course corrections that we can get into for short windows of time. Raw cultured organic dairy, hard to find. Fermented vegetables, because the fermentation process is the bacterium already breaking down the food, and then that donates really good pre-probiotics to us. Coconut products, because that's more rich in omega-3s. Sprouted seeds like flax, chia, and hemp. Ladies, if you came to our talk on the cycles and seasons of women's health, we covered a topic called seed cycling, which was a natural and normal way that we used to manage our progesterone and estrogen levels. If you guys have not read about seed cycling, I would encourage you to do so. Organic grass-fed beefs and lambs and bisons and wild-caught salmon, but even this you got to be careful with now with nuclear reactors and stuff. So the gut contains over 100 trillion bacteria, but 500 to 1,000 different species. This is also a really important topic to cover when we talk about probiotics. Okay, probiotics, in order for them to do anything for you, you have to be 1 billion CFUs per strain of bacteria. So if you look at the back of your probiotic and it says like 50 million CFUs, not enough. It's got to be 1 billion per strain of bacteria. Okay, if we're supposed to have 500 to 1,000 different species of bacterium, and we're only taking one strain of bacterium, is that probiotic effective for you? Nope. Okay, so we want something that's very biodiverse, ideal, right? But there are certain strains of bacterium that have certain health benefits. Like, gentlemen, ladies, if we get a lot of recurrent UTIs, that means we are typically deficient in something called lactobacillus, which is a specific bacterial strain that lines the urethra. Okay. Also for UTIs, lactobacillus, D-mannose, cranberry, parsley. Great ways to flush the kidneys, the ureters, and help to reduce burden. Cool. 90% of serotonin is made in the gut. 70% of your immune cells are located in the, where they start with, specifically something called immunoglobulin A, IgA, which A stands for Gs. So if we have a lot of allergies, we are not generating enough IgA in the right proportions. Okay. Stomach acid, in reference to our gut health. Do we want our stomach to be super acidic? Yes.
Needed to break down the food.
Yeah. Why? So commonly people talk about I have acid reflux because I have too much acid. It's the common misconception, but the probability is you're actually not generating enough. Because once the stomach is acidic enough, there is a biofeedback mechanism from the acid talking to the sphincter in the esophagus, and then that loop goes up via the vagus nerve to the brain, and then that closes the sphincter. But if the stomach doesn't tell you it's going to digest food because it's not acidic enough, that sphincter stays open, and then we get stuff in the esophagus. Really cool book on this called "Why is Stomach Acid Good?" Please check that out. Stomach acid is vitally necessary. It helps us to break down what we need to repair our tissues, muscles, nerves. That stomach acid has to be a specific pH in order to activate something called pepsin, an intrinsic factor. If you are anemic, you do not have enough intrinsic factors, which influences the absorption of
Where do you get that?
an appropriate amount of stomach acid, having a healthy microbiome. Right? Kills pathogens before they reach the intestines, that tighten gap junctions. And then also super important for downstream processes like pancreas, liver, and gallbladder. Also, if you don't have a gallbladder, that's a problem. Acid reflux is commonly referred to as too much acid, and then we take from pump inhibition drugs or acid suppressant medications, and that starts to cause all sorts of lung issues up and downstream, because if our stomach is not acidic enough and we're not stripping nutrients away from food, you are going to have some variation of a deficiency. Okay. Better approach is to restore normal acidity. And our stomach does naturally kind of become less acidic. We're less efficient at producing that. Okay? Gallbladder. We have 3 primary macronutrients of the body. What are they? Proteins, fats, and lipids, fats, and I think carbs, sugars. Nice job. how do we get energy from the fat that we eat? We have to have a liver and a gallbladder doing its job. If we don't have a gallbladder, we cannot emulsify fat effectively and convert fat into energy. So everybody that's ever had the gallbladder taken out, you should be chronically supplementing something called bile salts. Yes, in order for your body to emulsify fat and generate energy from that profile. If you do not have that, it is going to cause interesting issues in your body. And if you cannot process and emulsify fat effectively, fat is the precursor, cholesterol is the precursor to the formulation of all of our hormones. It's also the precursor to the formulation of something called melanin, which is that fatty sheet that protects your nervous system. Cool. So our gallbladder's got to work the way that it's supposed to. Gallbladder and liver, very, very important for storing sugar, specifically something called liver glycogen, very important for utilization of fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin D. And if you are racing, you are Caucasian, you need to be supplementing vitamin D because we have less melanocytes. We have a harder time generating and synthesizing vitamin D from the sun. Cool.
And how does that affect hormones? Because the hormones too.
It's a precursor.
What is it? How does it affect on
Also the
hormones?
muscle mass, bone density, systemically. Vitamin D is a primary process that you have to have for really. Same thing with
It
cholesterol.
won't mess your hormones up.
You don't have to.
I mean, if you supplement.
No, yes, no, it would actually support that. Okay. Liposomal vitamin D is going to be more absorbable than what you're going to get for a little light pill from nature's fountain. Okay. Fat is the precursor to so many things. So guys, as we get to this holiday season and as we are trying to be more conscious consumers, we need to work on ditches and switches, okay? Gotta get away from our Teflons because one scrape of a Teflon pan produces, I don't remember the statistic, but it was like tens of thousands of microplastics. It's crazy. So if you switch to your cast irons, okay, they last a whole lot longer. It's a great home defense mechanism. And also it helps to fix B vitamin issues, anemias, folates, so forth and so on. So switch over your cast irons, just keep them seasoned and they last forever. Get rid of your plastic storage containers, please, and switch over to glass and silicone. Yes, it does cost you more to do it this way, but you can either pay the farmer now or you can pay big pharma later. So up to you on how you want to handle your business, but they do last a heck of a lot longer and you have uncertain. I don't know. It's not certain. So I know what you're referencing. I don't know. Okay. And then we just, I'm working on things on this one. Yeah, get rid of the aluminum foil, especially heating things in aluminum foil, cooking over the grill with aluminum foil. In the oven, switch your aluminum foils to parchment papers. You can't use parchment paper over the grill. You will cause fire. Okay. Butcher's paper. Smoking. You'll know the answer to that.
Saran wrap too. Yes.
You gotta get rid of your plastics. Okay. Dishes, okay, our stickers, M&Ms, almond joys. They finally quantified the amount of artificial dye it takes to cause nervous system damage. You want to guess what it is? Not very much. About 10 to 30 milligrams. Yet the average American meal, specifically school lunches, is what they evaluated, had roughly about 1,500 milligrams of artificial dyes. It's like, help these kids avoid food. Don't give them recess anymore and make them sit in class. How's that going to work out? Yeah, not going so well, right? So I did provide my lovely wife, and did this for everybody, some of these alternatives for you today. Guys, is this helpful? No. Does it reduce our burden of artificial crap? Yes. Yes. So in this season, holiday season, get it. We all want to strive for excellence and perfection. Probably none of us are going to be 100%, right? We could choose to do that. It's just probably not something that we're going to choose to do. I would implore all of us to try and choose to do this, but we want to work on reducing the artificial dye burden and ideally having better ingredients in those products. So in our family, if we do the Halloween thing, our kids get inundated with a crap ton of candy, or we're doing snacks after baseball games or something like that, Because we don't want to do like get to college age and then just be like, fuck the system, and, right? So you gotta do a little bit of this. So yeah. So Young Earth is a really decent brand. They make pretty good suckers. They have an alternative to Skittles. Justin's has dark chocolate and better source seed oils. Still not good for you. And then Unreal brand's pretty decent. Okay, so if you guys start to look into the ingredients of these products, you're not going to be like, wow, this is healthy for me. You'll be like, it's a heck of a lot better than M&M's. Okay. Thanksgiving. You guys are interested? Cookieandcake.com. She makes some really good stuff and super clean. And this would fit into the recommended dietary profiles that I have some of you on. Okay. We got to get rid of our refined sugars, vegetable oils, refined bleached flours, and cornstarches. If you need to thicken something up like a gravy, switch from cornstarch to an arrowroot powder. I also made chicken wings the other day with arrowroot powder. They turned out real good. Man,
I use a considerable amount of evaporated milk and sweet condense milk. So, and what I use is, because I make pumpkin pie.
yeah.
So, I use both of those ingredients for pumpkin pie. So, if I'm not using that, now, Google it.
I don't know this person. I get nothing from this person. She does a really good job of dishes and specials, okay? So I would reference her in reference to making a healthy alternative to your pumpkin pie. I have a lot of fun stuff in here. I don't have it. When we talk about our sweeteners, we do want to switch to our honeys, maple syrups, coconut sugars, applesauce, bitters, and whole wheat stevia. Okay. And then for gingerbread people, decent gingerbread recipe. And this was more of a sugar cookie for Christmas. Less burden, but still be careful about your whole grain white flours. Try to few organic ones. What's the brand? King Arthur's. King Arthur's is a pretty decent brand. Okay. Part 2 is talking about the nervous system. I can burn through this in about 5 minutes if you guys want. But I also have a baby that I need to take care of and I'm waiting for a few minutes. So thank you. Appreciate that. So we're going to move through this pretty quickly because this is the nervous system side of the gut brain connection. Today was more focused on the gut. Okay, but the primary connection is the vagus nerve. Cranial nerve 10 goes from brain to gut. It is outside of the spinal cord. It is that big, beautiful little thing here. Gentlemen, when we get kicked in our nether regions, we feel sick too hard because of your. Somebody knows their anatomy. Okay, but that's why we feel sick to our stomach. But this nerve literally connects into. Its primary job is to regulate something called homeostasis, keeping things in balance, keeping it aware, keeping it efficient. Your vagus nerve exits the skull through the internal jugular foramen, small little hole between your temporal bone and your occipital bone. So, guys, what's one thing that we work on all of you? Your spinal health. Our spine looks like this. How much increased tension is being applied to that vagus nerve? A lot. There's been a huge increase in vasovagal suprapunctus. That is becoming way more common because of loss of lordosis of the neck and compression of the brainstem and the vagus nerve at the other side.
That's why it's called catchy. That's right.
So autonomic nervous system, guys, we have a parasympathetic side and a sympathetic side. Sympathetic is what happens when we go into a fight or flight mechanism. Parasympathetic is what happens when we go to a rest, digest, healing, growth, sleep, hormonal regulation period. You guys ever wonder, like maybe, especially if you just started care, like, doc, hurts my mid-back. They're like, we understand, but we're going to adjust your upper neck with your butt. Has anybody had that experience? Yeah. Because we need to initially help your body to heal and get out of a stress-induced state. In order to do that, we have to stimulate these pathways. The downregulate your nervous system so your body can start to take better care of itself. Okay? And then once you're more competent and your nervous system is better, then we can start to stress out the sympathetic chain. Okay? Stress alters the gut brain axis. If you're super duper stressed out, your body's going to be altered in its gut health and its neurologic response. There are all fun mechanisms for it, but ultimately, adrenaline, cortisol, norepinephrine, epinephrine, all of those wonderful hormones and transmitters are going to jack up our system. When you're super stressed out, what happens to your blood pressure? What happens to your respiration rate? What happens to your immune system? What happens to your reproductive system? What happens to your sleep? You guys are all. Okay. Stress, inflammation, depression. Okay. This is a really cool study, but basically it's talking about how stress is the precursor to our inflammatory response. And back in the day, our stressors were much more binary and life-threatening situations of like, say, your teeth tight or bad. You try that, right? Fire, good. So, but now a lot of our stressors are perceived. We have media, social media, anybody turn on the news and feel good about life,
No.
right? Yeah. Taxes, finances, bills,
War.
family, war, famine, right? Miss America stuff. So we have all these perceived stressors that our brain does not differentiate from, okay? Which is why we have higher burden. Cool. So research found that the vagus nerve mediates the relationship between psychobiotics. This is really cool. So the bacterium in your stomach, the microbiome, basically they studied this and understand that now that influences the vagus nerve. It was communicated via the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve then tells your nervous system or your brain, like, hey man, everything's good, we're in good working order, and stuff in small intestines. Or the opposite can happen too. Okay? Not in good working order, high inflammatory cortisol response, jacking the system. Signs that you have an amount balance. It's going to be very similar to the gut inflammation stuff, but low parasympathetic tone, meaning this system is not generating enough input. We're typically going to see depressed type symptoms. Whereas if we have high sympathetic tone, we're typically going to see excitability, more excitability disease processes like anxieties, IBS, insomnias, irritabilities, neurodevelopmental issues. So also for our neurodevelopmental children, super cool by the way. Your baby is here today. Came in about 3 weeks ago. 6 months of development, couldn't sit. Like posture, like you should sit at 6 months. We would just like kind of flop over. Literally done like one adjustment. He's controlling his postural extensor muscles. And then today he crawled into the office. For 3 weeks. I know, we were all like, he literally crawled to the front, we're all like looking like, it's like, it's super fun. So for all the neurosensory individuals out there or babies that are not hitting developmental milestones, more than 50% of children, we need to typically drive a whole lot of input through these areas. Okay? There's a ridiculous amount of data on this now. So we want to make sure that that nervous system and that vagal tone's in good working order. We can measure that and do that through something called heart rate variability analysis, which all of you do here at this office. And most of you have access to this now as well. These are 10 ways that you can, on your own, maybe with a little help from friends, help improve your vagal tone. Number 1, COVID. The opposite, antithesis of COVID, right? Positive, social, peer, influence, and engagement. Because when we interact socially, very beneficial to the day. That's also why solitary confinement is a high level corporal punishment. Right? Cold exposure. Also, when you do something that's uncomfortable, there's a part of your brain called the anterior cingulate gyrus that lights up and gives you better willpower to interact with things in the future.
Cold plunging.
Cold plunging. Also, shameless plug. You guys have seen the signs. That is going to be next door. There's going to be a recovery studio. They're going to have cold plunge, sauna, infrared sauna, Dahlia red light bed, which the data on this is super cool. Dahlia red light beds over a 4 to 6 week protocol or window of time. The testimonials and the outcomes are like 40 to 60 pounds and like 20 inches because the Dahlia red light helps to kill the fat cells in the body, and then compare that with like vibration plate therapy and nutritional protocol, like that lots of autoimmune stuff just goes through the roof. It's super cool. I think they're going to do a hyperbaric oxygen chamber in the future, but that one's expensive. So hopefully 1st of December. That's what I'm hearing, and it's really very excited about it. So yeah, he loves. So cold exposure or cold immersion therapy, short windows of time. Women, you have to be more conscientious of this in reference to your hormone profile, especially if you're childbearing. Gargling. Anything that vibrates the throat, resonates the vagus nerve, which is why also singing, chanting, humming, laughing, and Chewbacca noises like doing that. Massage and laughter, social engagement, hearing. Yoga and Tai Chi. Tai Chi statistically outperforms yoga in the regulation of the nervous system. Pretty cool. But the yoga is still very good, but there are some interesting things in reference to belief systems there. Breathing deeply and slowly. Everybody, do me a favor. Put one hand here on your chest. One hand here on your belly. Close your eyes. Don't breathe yet. Hold your breath. Don't hold your breath too long. But pay attention to which hand moves more. Take a deep inhale. And exhale. All right, show of hands. Whose upper hand? Whose hand on their chest moved more? Okay, whose belly moved more? Belly breathers win. Sorry, guys. Chest breathers. We have a dysfunctional breathing pattern. So when we breathe, our lower abdomen to expand, which pulls the diaphragm down, which allows the lungs to expand. Diaphragmatic movement stimulates the vagus nerve, which is why box breathing or deep breathing is basically included in any sort of mental health practice. Snipers in the military use it to downregulate their blood pressure in order to focus their field of vision. Box breathing is a good way to do that. Exercise, not shocking. Handshakes plug, number 10. They allow for people to ask. Good old chiropractic. A little biased, but yes, that's a good place to start. So this is a great way for you guys to measure your autonomic nervous system. It's through something called heart rate variability. You do these assessments here. But the data on this is super sound, and most of you guys have access to this data now as consumers. I don't know how I feel about all the EMF and biometric data being shared, but that's up to you. Okay. And we know all the subluxation stuff, but basically, jacked up spines, jacked up brains, blood flow, and cerebrospinal fluid circulation, and that's going to mess up your vagus nerve, and that's going to mess up that gut-brain connection. If the vagus nerve is altered, it's going to make it really hard for your gut to talk to your brain the way that's designed to. So, if we just work on gut health, are we going to get better? Partly, right? If we work on nervous system health, are we going to get everything better? A lot of it, right? But if we smash the two together, that's a really good way to solve like 90% of problems that we're all facing. Okay? So that's why, guys, data. That's why, guys, if you choose, no pressure on this. If you guys need help through this holiday season or just in general, maybe the first year is a reset, we are starting to offer gut health programs. No pressure on this, but they've been wildly successful. We've had individuals like drop 100 and something pounds and reverse their diabetic diagnoses. We've had individuals not have to be hospitalized for diverticulitis. People sleeping through the night, regulating hormones, fertility improving, like, all the stuff that just comes with better gut health and gut competence. And you need a little bit of a reset. 90 days is a good window to work on it. If you need help, 6 months is what you need to do to work on it. Why 90 days and 6 months? Because the cells that line the stomach and small intestines turn over in what period of time? 90 days. So if we want to help the body to repair, we got to give it a minimum of 90 days. If we really want to reverse the disease process, we got to give it 6 months. Okay? So if you guys want to help with any of these protocols, no pressure on this. There's a 90-day to 6-month offering. If you do want to move forward with something like that, we will discount it for you. But I sat down and did this, the supplemental aspect and the sensitivity testing aspect. If you were to pay somebody or pay for each of the individual supplemental supports in this protocol, as well as the sensitivity testing, that would be your bill. For real. Like I sat down and I sourced all of them. I was like, oh my gosh, Amazon client's really expensive. So it's PhD formulator out of Florida. Named Dr. Cracking, I believe. Just kind of fun at the chiropractic thing. Really brilliant gentleman. Yeah, right. Really brilliant gentleman, but he built these really cool protocols, and they are a really good way to help reset the system. So if you guys need help with that, whether it's now prior to the holiday or whether getting after the end of the holiday, yeah, I know. But feel free to reach back out to us. We'd be happy to help you with these various protocols. If you let me know, no pressure on this. And it doesn't have to be a full protocol too. If you're like, Doc, I need to review my diet. Doc, I'm taking these supplements. What do you think? Doc, I want to try and reduce my need for this medication. What things can I do in my body to help my body improve so that way maybe I can talk to my medical doctor about not needing this one so much. Right? So if you guys want help with that, just ask. Our family is always so blessed to partner with yours to get to the root cause of your health concerns. Have a wonderful evening. Be blessed. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
You have to figure out what you want to eat.
And then, oh, yeah. And they were. Oops. And I'm not gonna tell you that. All right, yes, yes. Well, yeah, three months. I would say it went.
Last time. I still don't. Yeah. So we're going to visit.
I've never tried any of these things before, so. Sweet, sweet. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Well, so how many days left? Yeah. So I wrote down the date and I started.